Before we start, I would like to apologise for the quality of the sound in this podcast episode. I'm not sure what happened, but I tried to battle with it as much as possible, and this is the best that I could get it to be fixed. It was between this and sounding like an Animal Crossing character where you just cannot tell what I'm saying. So once again, apologies for that. Hey, hi, hello there amateurs, and welcome to another episode of Formula Amateur. Today we have a very special episode where I will rant and rave about the F175 livery reveal and everything that you need to know about what happened, why it was so special, why it's worth rewatching, and why perhaps we should see it again, maybe not. We'll get into all of this and everything else. Let's do this. So Formula One had fit a lot in the space of 2 hours at the O2 Arena. What we can deduce is that there were a lot of jokes, a lot of banter, there was a bit of shade thrown at the FIA, at certain teams and certain members of teams. There were also a lot of discussion around who could potentially win the next Drivers' Championship, World Constructor Championship. There was a lot going on, and some things went really well, some things could have been improved in some way, but we'll start off with talking about Jack Whitehall and how he had brought a lot of people together where, not apart from people in the UK, a lot may have not known who he was, although he had acting roles in films such as Jungle Cruise. He has had world tours. He is mainly a British staple of comedy, amongst other comedians as well. But what we can deduce is that a lot of people around the world did like everything that he got to show for himself. He did say that he's a new fan of Formula One, so it was a privilege to be able to host this so early into his interest in Formula One. But he did a fantastic job getting people to say things they would otherwise not say, or maybe make people say something where you would typically expect them to say, but not in the environment they were in. For example, when he made Gordon Ramsay swear, he is known for his swearing, but he wanted to be formal and casual in such a wonderful one-off event, and there he goes swearing because that's what we know him for, and he ended up doing a venting of sorts about the FIA. The FIA got massive boos when Laura Winters said her piece to thank the FIA for everything they've done in Formula One. The vibes in the arena were, no, we do not like the FIA. The FIA can do one. They want to ban swearing. The FIA is the organisation that looks over motor racing sports, including Formula 1, Formula 2, Formula 3. They don't look over IndyCar, but they do look over other sports as well as karting and things like that, rallies. And what the FIA is doing is sort of putting their foot into puddles that are actual deep oceans. They want to have as much control of the sport where people want them to back off. They want Formula One to be authentic and to be off the cuff, and they want to make it bureaucratic and corporate and make it as bubble wrapped as possible, when this is something that people want to be more inclusive. They want it to be authentic. They want to be able to say, this is not just about the cars. This is about the friends we make along the way, the banter we have. Last episode we discussed memes, we discussed the banter that we have with all these drivers, where, Alonso being the forever rookie, and George with his T-posing everywhere, and, Max being unbeatable, being a killer of drivers in Red Bull. And, we want this to be real, we want it to be authentic, and the FIA wants to put it in a box where it's safe and where it can be good for children, whereas the ideas Formula One fans seem to have is this is not something that children should be watching from a young age. If you're sensitive to swearing and things like that, maybe sports that involve a lot of emotion, a lot of frustration, that when there's a lot of personality, if you don't like personality, maybe Formula One is not for you, because it has never been a sport known for its cleanliness in terms of how it's viewed, because that makes it unique, it makes it special. It sort of gives you the opportunity to see a sport from a perspective of, although it's such, in a way, exclusive sport, because it's difficult to get into. If you want to be a Formula One driver, you have to start in karting, and then you have to work up the ranks through different sort of championships in different types of cars and things like that before you're allowed to step into that Formula One car with your super license. It takes a lot to get there. You can't just say, it's not like football where you learn from kicking a ball about for a couple of years. You go on to local matches, join teams, and then work your way up there. You can't just hop into a Formula One car and say, right, I'm going to be the next Max Verstappen. So the FIA got a lot of boos because people are not happy with the way they are trying to change the sports. The stewards are also being very restrictive. They're throwing all sorts of penalties out everywhere when people want to say, that's not fair. That was just, sort of vengeance and sort of censorship in a way. And I'm going to conclude this rant about the FIA because I went on for long enough. But basically, the FIA are not in the good books for fans. So this, I hope, and I'm sure that Laura Winters knows this, the boos weren't for her. It was what she was talking about. It was in her script. She probably expected this to happen. She did a wonderful job being one of the hosts as part of the F1 TV crew. The boos were for the context, not for her. And we saw many presenters go in and out of going off and on stage when I feel, Red Bull was the only team that didn't really say much, mainly because it started off with Christian Horner starting to go on a monologue about how proud he is of his team, but because of Red Bull's antics, with not hiring Yuki but hiring Liam instead, and what they did to Daniel Ricciardo where they fired him and didn't really tell anyone, left a lot of fans in suspense. Many fans felt that he was sort of, dumped out of nowhere. Yeah, he didn't have a great season, but it was sort of, it wasn't a nice way of going about, they didn't let him off lightly. And so the crowd sort of did the same to Christian Horner as well. He was involved in a few scandals himself. And it's a rough sport, and you have to take the rough with the smooth sometimes. But the booze took a little bit of time out of what Red Bull could have done. I suspect that also maybe Max didn't even want to speak, so he wasn't too disappointed that he didn't get the chance to speak, or maybe he was hoping that he won't have the chance to speak. But it did look very awkward when they were walking out on the stage with a whole gaggle of people dancing and touching the drivers, and a 4-time world champion probably does not want you to touch them, so that did feel a bit wrong. Not a good thing to consider doing. But also, the presentations, every team had 7 minutes to present their livery, but a lot of them focused more on sort of the amping up. They wanted to amplify sort of the expectations to look forward to the next year, and they wanted to sort of show their team in a good light. But people just wanted to see the cars. I feel like they put a lot of attention to things that people didn't care for as much. What you wanted to see was the car, the livery, the drivers, and the team principals. This was more, sort of filler content surrounding it. You want to experience the actual expectations rather than the fluff surrounding it, and there was a lot of fluff going around, but every team did it their own way. They did do great cinematics for each of their presentations. Aston Martin went with a James Bond theme because James Bond drives an Aston Martin, so they went with that, and a little bit of a Daft Punk theme with the drivers walking out with their helmets and their suits on, or not their racing suits. And then also there was Racing Bulls, VCARB, Visa Cash App Racing Bulls, as they clearly wanted people to know. They did this whole Billy on the Street thing with a comedian going around, what do you know about this team? What do you think they're called? What's their current name? Things like that. They really wanted to sort of work up with the joke that people have been having for a couple of years, because this Red Bull junior team, every single year they keep changing their name. Nobody knows what to call them anymore. It's they wanted to play up on the fact that people are taking the mick out of them for this, and they want to take the mick out of themselves, just to sort of be on the more relatable level where they probably understand that the senior Red Bull team aren't as relatable to people anymore, not when they are so entrenched in being very secretive, in my opinion. McLaren decided that what people want to see from a Constructors' Champion is to see the other construction and driver championship cars. So they had Lewis Hamilton's car from 2008, and they had cars from previous decades as well. Senna's car. I believe there were 4 cars on the stage, with the latest obviously being the 2024 car. The 2025 car actually. And they had the new livery, but they wanted to. Every team sort of went alongside the whole history vibe, but McLaren just went, people want to see history, but they also want to see real life history. They don't want to see a video transformation of this car looked like this, then it looked like this, then it looked like that, then it looked like this. They wanted to see the real changes. They wanted to compare the cars over time, their most successful cars. Let's have a look at them and see how much over time how success has changed, how success looks like, and how did we improve over the years. And Alpine, I liked their livery. I liked the whole. I love it when teams shake up their livery, make it something new, make it something unique, rather than going, this is our livery. Oh, what a surprise! It's the same. it just sort of brings a bit more excitement into the game, really. The Alpine, the V-Carb and the Stake, they went quite hard on the revamp sort of vibe. Stake went for a green to black gradient sort of fade, but more neon focus rather than black, because people are sick of seeing the carbon fiber. It might be like the lightest material to put on the car, and each paint has different weights and things like that, and you want the car to be the right weight but also as lightweight and things like that. But ultimately people just want to see more colour. They want to be able to go to a race or see a race on TV and say, oh, that car, that's that team, oh, and that one is that team, rather than every single car looking virtually the same and you can't tell the difference between, a Ferrari and a Stake. So it was good to see that some teams did shake it up a bit. Alpine went for a sort of light blue and pink situation, but a presentation with Brian Tyler, who is an iconic musician for the F1 community, because he's the one who created the current F1 theme tune. He did do a whole DJ set that looked a bit overblown. He may have just been, some people have said, acting as if he was DJing, but it did go on for a bit. We could have had more from the drivers. That goes to every single team, really. We could have had more from the drivers and the team principals and less of the fluff. That went on for a good 5 or 6 minutes of him just DJing. We didn't really hear much from Pierre or from Jack. We could have had a bit more of what we're really there to see. And then Haas sort of did a bit of rejigging on their colour scheme, and instead of having side pods that are black with white writing, they did it the opposite way. They had a bit more white going on. They wanted to sort of revamp their colour scheme without really changing it, but just sort of flipping it about a bit. And they really went on the American vibe, the American sort of string of, we are the American team, we're the only ones until next year. They had an American country singer, Kane Brown, who also performed, and he was also in the video presentation, talking about how important the team is for America and things like that. And then we move on to, and I know this is all in all sorts of places, this is not going along a timeline of any sort. Williams, they did a dark blue to light blue situation because they wanted to go with the dark blue for Williams, but also the light blue for the new sponsor, new partnership with Atlassian. And I do like that sort of gentle fade into different colours, and they obviously kept the best sponsorship with Duracell on the air thing behind the driver, so it looks like a battery. We all love it. We love to see it. We hope it lasts forever. And we also seen a lot of people were very critical of Ferrari, simply because of one thing. They slightly changed up the red, and nobody's complaining about that. It looks wonderful, but there is too much HP sponsorship. It's more like it's HP featuring Ferrari, with how much it's mentioned on the car, how much it's mentioned on the race suit, how much is on the other uniform for Ferrari. It's a bit too overwhelming. Like, we understand that, the sponsors, they have the control over, where they want their name to be. But you have to also understand that, it's great you're giving this team money to thrive, but also you have to sort of find a middle ground where you're not just too overwhelming and just taking over the team. It's not it's not HP featuring Ferrari, it's Ferrari sponsored by many companies, including HP. And people were joking that they were going to get rid of their printers if they're HP, because who would want to be associated with a brand that has sort of ruined an iconic brand just in a few stickers and a lick of paint. Now Mercedes, they haven't really changed much either, just like Red Bull hasn't changed much. Red Bull probably stayed the most samey looking, where they just didn't do any changes. The only thing that has changed is just that they lost quite a few sponsors when they let Checo go, and now they had to get new sponsors, so it's just a few changes about, a bit of wiggle room here and there, but apart from that, not really much to say. It looks exactly the same. The cars haven't really changed since Red Bull began, just in the standard shapes. They keep changing it just to fit with the regulations. And then with Mercedes, they also they wanted to focus a bit more on the silver rather than the black, but they wanted to also sort of keep it relatively samey. They don't want too much change. People did notice that Ineos, one of their biggest sponsors, was not mentioned on the car at all. So people are speculating that they may have lost them as a sponsor, or they are slowly losing them as a sponsor. And Ineos is also backing out of certain football teams as well, so it might not be much of a disagreement between team and sponsor rather than the sponsors' issues themselves. But that's just me speculating. That's other people speculating. Who knows? Maybe we'll find out soon enough. And then, with VCarb, everyone is applauding VCarb for their beauty of a car, because even Isaac Hajjal, when he was revealing the car, he was stunned, because they didn't just, revamp it a little bit. They completely threw out the old livery, put on a new one. It was pure white with splashes of dark blue, but instead of having paint splatters or fade or whatever, where there would have been paint splatters, there were, racing balls just hopping out of blue space onto the white, and it was so clean but good. It was positively clean. It was a change that we wanted to see. We wanted them to sort of, even though they are a Red Bull team, we wanted to see them sort of split away from looking like, the younger brother or the younger sister of a team. You want to change it up a bit. You want to make it a bit more exciting. And, Racing Bulls did that with their new livery, which is great to see. McLaren went with and they even said it themselves, they stuck with a livery that looks very similar to what they had in previous years, but specifically with what they had last year, because they wanted to stick with the idea that, we won the championship looking like this, so we're going to keep this because clearly this is the look of a champion. And from that point of view, I see why they did that, because, if you want continuity, you might as well do something similar. I would have preferred a little bit of a nuance here and there. I didn't really see much of a difference, but I'm also glad that they did not keep the camo livery that they had on when they revealed the car in Silverstone about a week ago. Because that did look like a poison dart frog, not gonna lie. It was an experimental look, but it was not an approved look by anybody's standards. There was not enough papaya. Now there's a little bit of a touch of more chrome. And it seems like chrome goes a long way for McLaren when it comes to successes as well, with them having a chromey look when they won in Miami. And it was quite a it was quite the adventure, this livery reveal. There was a lot of banter I mentioned at one point in the beginning. There was a bit of shouting going on from the crowds, but they were mainly supportive shouting. We had a lot of, Stake brought on some drummers. Mercedes tried to do a pit stop and they failed because they couldn't get the wheel off the car. They did, that dance break for Red Bull. They did the singing as well for Aston Martin. They did the car stack for McLaren. Ferrari got the biggest roar from the crowds because they finally see Lewis in red. Lewis has been such an icon. Alonso also got a lot of cheers from the crowds as well, just because he is Alonso. He is the meme lord. He is the legend, the myth, the everlasting rookie. Can't say the same in terms of cheers for Lance Stroll, but that's his problem. And then we see a lot of also cheers for McLaren. We also got so many cheers for Haas when he came up with their new team of Ocon and Behrman, because we have a wonderful rookie who did so well in the races he covered last year, with Ocon, who is finally free from the Alpine curse because they treated him skeptically when he was there for the 4 or 5 years, and there was a lot going on in terms of, things happened, and I would love to see it again. Maybe not next year. Leave it to more iconic times. So, I understand doing it for the 80th, but not the 76th. Give it a bit of a break. Just like family weddings, don't have them too often. I still haven't woken up from the last one I attended, and now I have another one in a couple of months to go to. You just, find the perfect medium. But I do think that they should consider doing this again. Would they do that in another place? Understandably, it was in London because that's where Formula One really started in the UK. It's a very British sport, but they could do it anywhere. I would love to see it. Maybe one day they could reveal a whole shake-up of tracks, newly built tracks in places we haven't been to before. I would love to see races in Africa, because we haven't had an African race in so long, and there are so many places it could be. It's, in terms of racing, it's such an unexplored continent with so much opportunity that it's just a shame that we're missing out on it. And I'd love to see more things coming for South America. The F1 exhibition is leaving London soon to go to Buenos Aires in Argentina, and we would, I love to see the sport become more and more global, more and more accessible, more and more inclusive, and I feel like this, we've gone so far in 75 years. We still have a lot to go, but I do like the growth that we've been going through for this sport, and I can't wait to see where it goes. It's a positive future for a positive outlook. There could have been things improved from the livery reveal. Give Brian Tyler less time on stage. Machine Gun Kelly sort of felt a bit misplaced. Maybe he's a fan of Formula One, but he doesn't really scream Formula One to anybody. Kylie Minogue makes more sense because we've seen her on the tracks waving flags and things like that. We would love to see. Take That was a bit of an odd choice. They did perform well, in my opinion, but it was a bit of a... I see Take That as quite a mumsy band, whereas Formula One, although a lot of mums do watch it, I don't see it as an exclusively mumsy sport. So it was a weird combination to throw. They do a good job, but they also don't strike me as a Formula 1 band, in my opinion. I don't know who to suggest, to be honest, but it would have been great if they could get Cartier Blanc and Max Power and the Pit Stop Boys who make songs about Formula 1, because that would tie in perfectly if they just had people who make Formula 1 music perform at a Formula 1 show, rather than let's see who's available and stick them in the O2 for a couple of minutes. It did feel like Kane Brown did an amazing job. I do apologise, I don't remember the singer's name for Aston Martin, but she did a wonderful job as well. And you know, we love to see new innovations for the sport, and hopefully we could see that this year, next year when the regulations change. I did rant very much in today's episode, but I hope you understand, and I'm sure I missed a lot of things out. You know, Jack Whitehall falling in love with Charles Leclerc, and Martin Brundle being the sexiest man from King's Lynn and the next James Bond pick, and you know, Gordon Ramsay being Gordon Ramsay, getting Lando Norris to swear potentially, depending on how you see certain words as swear words or not. But yeah, it was a wonderful time. It was a wonderful show, and we love to see it. Yeah. So I'd like to thank you guys for listening. Thank you for being my precious little amateurs. And don't forget to check out all of my lovely colleagues on Be The Change Media Network. And make sure to stick around for next Saturday with a new, fresh topic, just as special as the F175. And I'll see you next week. Have a wonderful week. Have a wonderful weekend. Goodbye.